OBAR members, good morning. This is Donna Creef.
And others. I think we've went nationwide now with Dare County posting a link to our last podcast.
Oh yes,
Donna.
maybe so.
That's right.
I forget our reach. That's
right.
right. So again, this is Donna Creef, your Government Affairs Director with Willo Kelly, and today we have Mr. Mike Siers from Howard Hanna Realty, and he's also the Mayor Pro Tem in the town of Nags Head. So he's checking a couple of boxes today.
I think we're going to check a few boxes.
Yes,
tourism board.
We are. Yes, he serves on the tourism board.
Yes.
He's on the housing task force with me.
Gosh.
He's just a man of a lot of activities, and so
a lot of hats,
a lot of hats. And so let's talk about your real estate hat. Okay, let's talk about the real estate
and
market.
thank you, by the way.
Yeah.
Our OBX Community Connection featured on the back. This is our list of trusted businesses, services, trusted resources that realtors, property managers can use. On the back, we have as one of our silver community partners, Howard Hanna, Outer Banks Realty. So thank you very much for your support of the association.
Absolutely.
And the association is our members, and it's helped keep our dues low since 1987. We have not raised our dues. So thank you for that partnership.
And thanks for coming in today and volunteering to sit down with us. You know, this is only
We have never dragged anybody in.
No, he
It's all been
he
volunteers.
volunteered. Yeah, he volunteered. So let's talk about real estate
painted
market.
anybody.
What's going on in the real estate market, and then let's talk about a little bit about the tourism board and what's going on there, and then we'll just see where we go with that. We got a lot going on.
Unless your numbers are different, I think the market right now is pretty active. We've got a lot of buyers out, and a lot of activity in the market. Price reductions are steady. Days on market are going up, but that's getting back to a normal market, not so much a COVID market that was inflated.
So
Inventory certainly has come back. I mean, there was a time we had 2 weeks inventory.
Any impact from the reval numbers that have come out on the real estate market, or is it too soon to tell?
I think it's too soon to really see that. They haven't finished.
Were they tracking consistently though?
The reval numbers were what you would sell your property for.
Okay.
Very consistent with that.
That was what I was thinking, and so because when I sat through the presentation that the county did, and when Hosey come and talked to us last month, that was what I was thinking was, okay, those numbers are consistent with what I've been seeing, and so that shouldn't be any big surprise for anybody. And if you're a homeowner here in Dare County, it was good news for you until you get your tax bill. So
well, and property taxes are based on market value,
right?
Not like your insurance policy is supposed to be based on the rebuild value of the structure. This is the market value of the property as a whole. So the land and the structure together. And so there is a difference there. Some people misunderstood that and thinking that their homeowner's insurance needed to reflect the same number on their property valuation. So that is not the case. So market value, and yes, accurate reflection of market value. Getting back into the market, we've been watching Northern Virginia, what's happening there, layoffs and whatnot, and seeing inventory come on the market. Is that any indication of we have a lot of owners from Northern Virginia, Maryland, DC area? Have you seen any of that folks putting their house on the market, second home maybe, saying might be time to sell?
Not from those folks directly. It's amazing. Back in 18 and 19, before COVID, I had a lot of folks moving down from Northern Virginia because of our school systems. They actually wanted to bring their children down here and raise them here versus that. So that was a big influx. They could all work from home, prior to COVID. So I don't see that the layoffs affecting our market at this particular point.
Okay.
Well, that's good. What about our tourism market? You're hearing, every day you turn on the news how, travel is being impacted by all of the uncertainty that's out there in the economy now. And you're on the tourism board. Are you guys seeing that? I've seen where some of the numbers they're saying are trending down, but again, it's pre-COVID versus the unicorn years of COVID, and
we really
were.
got to go back to pre-COVID and say, we're up? We're still trending up based on that number, but if you look at year over year, the last couple of years we are down, but March numbers are up year over year for this year based on the report I received yesterday. So I don't think tourism is necessarily down. We're a destination that people can drive to, so I think it's always going to be there. And Lee actually said yesterday he received word that you're going to have more traffic here over Memorial Weekend than ever.
It's been a busy May, you know, and if they keep having problems at all of the airports like they are up in Newark, people are going to be saying, I'm not flying, I'm going to drive to the Outer Banks.
By the way, did I tell you Scott and I have to go to a conference in Nashville? We're flying.
Well, you should be okay. I
Yeah,
feel
we'll be
last
okay.
weekend it was the first day of Real ID and it was just not a problem. So, tourism numbers, yeah, I think, you know, in terms of the tourism, that if we're a little bit off, it's okay, because sometimes it just seems like there's so many people here, and I think that's a feeling that a lot of permanent residents have. But you know, like, we all recognize the importance of occupancy taxes. I've been looking at the town budgets this past week where they've all been released, and it's pretty staggering to me how much the local governments get from the land transfer tax and the occupancy taxes. In some instances, it's more than 20% of the town budgets.
It's way more than 20%.
Yeah.
I think it was, I was talking to Webb Fuller this morning, 88 to 90. They changed, you know, in most towns, the majority of your tax revenue is from property tax.
Ad valorem tax, yeah.
And Dare County doesn't do it that way. We
No.
do it opposite. Occupancy tax, so our tourism business, sales tax, transfer tax, that's the heavier weighted side.
Yeah.
And if that dips and that goes down, then property taxes are probably going up. But that's the reason we actually have such a low property tax.
And I think a lot of the property owners understand that we have a low property tax and that there's benefits from the occupancy tax, but I don't think they understand the full breadth and scope of that. And I think you know that sometimes we need to remind them of that, particularly from the realtor side, because we often get bashed, you know, those realtors, and they don't understand the impact that we have on the community. And so, talking about the town budgets, again, most of the towns are coming in with a proposed tax rate. Granted, it's not adopted yet; it's a proposed. That's a little bit higher than the revenue neutral. The county's proposed a revenue neutral, but all of the towns are coming in a little bit higher than the revenue neutral. Is that?
It's based on the shortfall that would happen if they don't increase their tax. And there's I'll speak for Nags here because I'm there. We offer a lot of services that.
A lot of services, yeah.
A ton of services, and you can't take those services away. And a lot of infrastructure repair work and stormwater repair work that was pushed down the road due to lower taxes and not having the money. We are fortunate to get a lot of grant money and apply for a lot of grants to do that. But at the same time, to keep, you know, the town flowing, you've got to sometimes increase taxes.
Right, and we want to make sure that, you know, that the tourism stays vital and that we increase that occupancy taxes, or that we collect the occupancy tax. One of the things that we spend a lot of time talking about here at OBAR is that property manager and that licensed real estate agent who's renting that house, and who are, you know, we have a level of accountability. And Willo, you and I were just talking earlier this week about the ruling from the Real Estate Commission this week that they released.
The Real Estate Commission came out with clarification in their bulletin. I believe it came out, was it Friday or Monday, this past week? Anyway, within the past week, the Real Estate Commission came out, and just to clarify, if you are doing this, and this, then you do not need to have a real estate license. However, if you cross the line, and if you are getting paid on a per booking basis, if you are, you know, you have a website and say it's, you know, Willo Stays, whatever, and I am promoting those Airbnb properties on my own page,
webpage,
that crosses the line in property management. And so we know that with our licensees, they have to have continuing education. You know, that's through the Real Estate Commission. And then, in addition to that, there's the North Carolina Vacation Rental Act that says if you're acting on behalf of the landlord, you're supposed to comply with the Vacation Rental Act. We've sent something, a letter asking that the Attorney General clarify, you know, where does this definition that was created with the Department of Revenue, that these third-party marketing platform government affairs lobbyists came in and had the North Carolina Department of Revenue adopt a definition called an accommodation facilitator, where they could bypass submitting occupancy tax to the county on a per address basis, and they could do it by zip code lump sum. And so that blurred the lines, and there was never any connection between the accommodation facilitator and that definition or that description being put in the Vacation Rental Act. So where does the accommodation facilitator fall under the Vacation Rental Act? Because, you know, the largest third-party marketing platform is in California. And so does this mean they don't have to comply with the Vacation Rental Act when they are pretty much operating on behalf of the landlord? They're collecting occupancy tax.
Yes.
However, they don't have to put the money in a trust fund. They don't have to deposit, you know, 50% of the rent to the owner. So that money is just held and accumulating and earning interest, and then it's dispersed to the owner at time of occupancy. That's not how the Vacation Rental Act depicts, you know, the role and responsibility, and that's a consumer protection law. And so we are going to have, coincidentally, Donna, Mike, you should come. And we've been having issues with the transfer of property that's not held with a property management company. You probably face challenges when it comes to, hey, you're supposed to honor 180 days, you know, past the time of purchase if there are any lease agreements in hand. We've had owners come in and say, no, I don't want to rent it anymore. I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna do renovations. The law says they have to honor it, but then where's the enforcement? And then what does it take to enforce it? Like, how much money, you know, and time do you have to? Well, my rent was canceled. My wedding I was supposed to have. Now I can't stay in this home, and you know, it gets really tricky. So we face challenges there, and we try as hard as we can here at the Outer Banks Association of Realtors to, you know, bridge that gap between property management and sales. So on May 28th, 4:30, Swells a Brewing at Swells a Brewing in Kill Devil Hills. There will be we will have a meeting and the property management meeting networking session with the property management division chair of NC Realtors. Pamela Green will be here. I'm sure this is going to be a hot topic that we're going to discuss. A lot of times when you go to state and national meetings, property management does not reflect our property management. It's more long-term apartment buildings, office buildings, and I would get frustrated on going to meetings on the national level. Like, where's the short-term rental conversation? And we know that the VRMA, Vacation Rental Managers Association, is now under NC Realtors, the state division, and we are fortunate to have Tim Cafferty, I think, is the chair of that on the state level. And we've had Clark Twitty in that position, so we do have a lot of local representation. I think we're ground zero, really, when it comes to short-term rentals.
I think so.
And single-family homes as short-term rentals. So we're looking forward to that. One other thing I'd like to mention, again, the May 28th property management division, 43630 Swells at Brewing. But Mike, an indicator of tourism, while it's kind of an offshoot, is, you know, years ago, we were seeing, you know, little strip malls, Kitty Hawk, Kill Devil Hills, etc., empty spaces. And I'm seeing new business, new investment here in the Outer Banks. What are you seeing in the town of Nags? I'm seeing new restaurants. I'm seeing, you know, advertisements all the time. It's like, oh, I didn't know that business was there. I just went to Wake and Take, the bakery right down here in Nags Head. And found that was a new business.
I don't know where that is.
Yeah, nice. It's gluten-free.
Where is that?
I just gave you a plug.
Yeah.
OBX, we can take.
Okay.
Great stuff. But yeah, I'm seeing some new businesses, and I'm excited about that.
It's always exciting to have new businesses. There's still opportunity out there, and I just wish more people would take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's definitely an investment in our community. We know we're challenged with the labor market and housing. Guess what? Segue here. Mike is on the housing task force with Donna Creef as chair.
It's a big push.
Yeah, housing is a thing, but I'm seeing an investment in the community, and we've seen a few chains like the Wawa and stuff like that.
They're building a Starbucks in Nags
right in the
at
middle
the
of
outlet
the
mall.
Okay. Well, we like to
Everybody needs coffee.
Everybody.
And ice cream. Coffee and ice cream.
Hey, it's a match made in heaven there.
So I'm excited about that, and serving on the board there in Nags Head. You know, you see things coming through the planning department, and then approval for permits. Anything on the horizon that you can talk about? Guess you can't talk about it if it hasn't been approved yet.
That's right.
What has been approved that maybe we don't know about?
That maybe you don't know about. Nothing officially has been approved that you haven't read about or seen.
Okay. All right.
The town actually has a lot going on. The town's building, I don't know if you realize this, back there where the community care clinic is, the town is building a facility to house their lifeguards.
Employee housing.
Yeah, employee
Wow.
housing, yeah, so
Wow.
Nags is actually stepping up and doing some things to help with the housing market.
And the community care clinic being in the town of Nags, what an asset.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, we had a meeting here, and we had Lynn Jenkins here and talking about the clinic and the research. I was blown away. Donna and I went through that place, and I was amazed
Yeah, it's
of
pretty
the services
impressive.
that they offer. So what an asset to
A
the
lot
community.
of services.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of services. The other big thing that's been getting a lot of press from the local governments is all of the housing bills that have been going through the General Assembly.
Speaking of the housing task force.
Yes, yeah. So that's been getting a lot of press. Local governments are opposed to it. NC Realtors are in support of any housing bill. And so, it's sometimes a conflict there. In my role, the local governments are looking at me like, I'm some bad guy, but why is it a surprise that NC Realtors and OBAR is behind housing? I mean,
we're
that's
for
our business,
housing.
yeah.
We've always been for, a collaboration.
ADUs,
Working together.
yeah, small scale multifamily, yeah,
Yeah,
working
and-
together. I think that's the main thing.
And I don't know if you were a commissioner at the time, but when the most recent flood maps came out, and everybody is just in uproar, how are 70% of the properties in Dare County coming out of a special flood hazard area? And this is unheard of on the state level, and even anyone I've talked to at any national meeting. Nowhere has anyone ever with a home builders association, any realtors association, worked with local government to adopt local base flood elevations higher than what was on the FEMA maps. And we did that all together. And it seems like some folks are having a short memory here, that we have always tried to build a strong relationship with our local officials, work together, because as you know, Mike, serving on all these committees and the Tourism Bureau, the Mayor Pro Tem, all issues are local.
All local. Yeah.
And who knows better than how to
Local.
solve those issues than, like you just said,
Local.
local.
Yeah.
And, this bill that encompasses a lot of things, years ago we heard about like the city of Chapel Hill, they were requiring on single family lots, if you were to develop a single family home not in a subdivision, that you had to have a front porch and put your garage on the side of the house.
That's
That
what
was
it's like a covenant,
overreaching.
yeah.
Right? And it's like a homeowners association covenant, but it was part of their ordinance. And so, there was some backlash there, and things were changed. But in this case, the state association in doing this housing study found that how many units are we short in the state of North
Ooh,
Carolina?
it was a
Thousand. Like
it
it's
was
4,000.
thousands, yeah.
So in that, how do you address that on a state level when you see in other areas that there are things in place that are prohibiting development? And so that's where that came from. So I don't want, I want to remind folks that here with the association, from the time I was government affairs director, I've been CEO for 7 years, Donna's been government affairs director for 2.5 years, going on 3 years.
Wow.
We always
Time
try
flies.
to, work together.
Well, yeah, I mean, have you heard from a lot of your constituents there at the town of Nags
A few.
beyond the elected officials? I don't know if the constituents grasp, or if they take the time to read the bill. I don't know if some of the elected officials have read the bill. The last version of the bill is considerably less onerous than the first version.
It wasn't
Correct.
stripping a town of your
Complete rights.
development
Yeah,
rights
yeah.
to parking, landscaping, lot coverage, all those things that you have control
They
over.
were eliminating everything.
Yeah.
They threw
The
everything
the
in-
first version was almost as if it had stuff in there that they could carve out because they knew
course.
it was so, yeah. I mean,
That's how
that's
you
the
negotiate.
that's the oldest trick in the book, yeah. And so, and the town had hired a lobbyist earlier this year, which has proven
Yes.
to be very successful for you
beneficial.
guys. Yeah, very beneficial.
For some of the other towns too, because we took some of their requests to the lobbyists. So.
Well, yes, and even at the task force, we were able to coordinate the resolutions and get piggybacked on to a local bill that might proved beneficial for Dare County and the towns for us to have authority to build local government employee housing beyond the legislation that we have in place for the teacher housing. So
The lifeguard housing. I
the
haven't heard
lifeguard
that's-
housing, yeah, that's actively
Years
under
on that.
construction and pretty well along, is it
Yeah,
not?
it should be done by the fall probably.
Yeah.
So it'll be active for next year, but they'll use that in the winter for other housing needs as well.
Yeah, I was
awesome.
talking to Andy about that
So-
just the other day about the other housing.
We've looked at actually using that lifeguard housing as possible intern teacher housing as well.
Oh,
To
nice.
get folks to use it, because you don't want it sitting vacant, you know?
Right.
No, nobody wants to see it sitting vacant, and then the county's gonna be building a new EMS station there in Nags Head, right there by the Outer Banks Mall, where the old, it was an old BB&T, they bought the building from Nags Head, and county's gonna build an EMS station there. Where, are you guys got plans for a fire station somewhere?
Fire station's gonna go north of Danube Street.
Okay,
But that's 10 years out.
oh, okay.
8 to 10 years, you know, you gotta plan for this.
Oh, yeah.
Building life cycles.
There's
and-
capital improvement.
And beach nourishment, you guys are hoping to start beach nourishment next year?
I would like to see it in 26. It's just gonna come down to budget and what the cost is for that relocation and sand movement.
Yeah, so what are your feelings on the budget that the town manager presented to you the other day? I mean, do you think it's is it bare bones? I mean, I know that from what I've been hearing, there had to have been there's always more requests than there is money. But sometimes you get to, during the COVID years when we were getting all the federal money, you
Get a
were able
little
to do
comfortable.
things.
Yeah.
Now that's not the case, and so there's growing pains, yeah?
Adjustment pains, I would
Okay.
say. Our staff does a great job of planning and structuring replacement of some 60-year-old infrastructure. And we've got a 20-year complete drainage plan to replace all that and repave all our streets. So we may, a lot of things got cut out of the budget this year to make sure we didn't have to go above revenue neutral. We're slightly above revenue neutral. And we have one more meeting coming up, and that may change depending on what gets cut, because you don't want to push things down the road. They only get more expensive as time goes on. So.
Yeah, well, and the thing about the towns adjusting their property tax rate is that if Kill Devil Hills goes up higher than Nags Head and the other towns, then it affects your share of the occupancy tax.
And sales tax.
And so
Yeah,
it's
tricky.
a very awkward situation because you guys are almost forced into keeping up with them.
Yeah, or we lose more money.
Or you lose
Yeah.
more money, and as
Yeah.
we just talked about, the occupancy taxes and all that is a huge part of the local government's budget. So that's all that I have on my list here, Mike. Willow, I don't know if you have
Mike,
anything else, or if Mike
as
has
Mayor Pro
anything.
Tem, is there anything you'd like to share with members and beyond
Yeah.
as far as all the things that you're involved in?
Or just real estate in general, yeah.
Real estate. Real estate's a full-time job. Then you got your second full-time job as being Mayor Pro Tem. Then you got your third full-time job as working with Donna, because she expects a ton on the housing task force to Lee
Yes.
Meadows might be the easiest gentleman. He doesn't push too hard. So
I
that's,
gotcha.
that's
So I
that's
should
good
call
deal.
him and take lessons from him, is that what
No,
you're saying?
look, I'm excited about the housing task force. I mean, we've made a lot of growth as far as how far we could go within a short amount of time. I wish the county maybe would have started that 4 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
We'd be a little further along, but I don't want to put you on the spot again and set deadlines, but I've already told Malcolm that I think there's a deadline that should be hit. And
The nonprofit, forming a nonprofit?
the nonprofit might be there, but also, coming out of the ground with something.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
Well,
that can
yeah,
happen. I just
well,
don't want to put you on the spot.
well, I will say a lot of it is dependent on what the county does in their budget with that money that they've got set aside.
That's
And
true.
it's in there.
Yeah.
It's in there. It's been whittled down a little bit, but not as much as I was anticipating. So I've got my fingers crossed that they don't chip away at it some more. And I think once the budget gets approved, we'll be able to tackle down and maybe do some more. But we are making progress on establishing the nonprofit.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
on the other
Oh.
subcommittee. You don't hear all this, and I don't want to get too deep into all this, but it is a big push. But I think the important thing is that we've realized is that it's a generational thing, and that we're in it for the long haul. And
Yeah.
well, that's
I appreciate
And
your,
trying to
your
get
time and
ownership,
effort
you know.
on that.
Putting this in and trying to get ownership.
Right.
Because if you keep everything rentals, then they're transient and they could leave. But you
Yeah.
need to look at the demographics. You need younger folks. But I thank you for letting her go and do that. That's
Yeah, I just let you do that, don't I? Look, there was and I'm really excited about hearing, you know, what's in the future and not just the task force and then all of a sudden no more task force. I think there was 7 years of my life sucked out of me on serving on a transportation task force for Dare County. And there were so many great people on that task force and all these ideas and looking at organizing a transportation management authority here in Dare County. We had NC State do this study. We looked at possible like ride sharing programs, everything that a transportation management authority would oversee, and that study got put on a shelf.
Yeah.
And then nothing. It was just so
We're sensitive to
frustrating that, you know, we do have a transportation issue, but you know, that's down the road.
And the housing and the transportation is
Go hand in hand.
tied together.
They
yeah,
do,
yeah.
they do.
As well as everything else.
But do you find that, okay, in the transportation task force, and I find this, you know, when I serve on different committees, task forces, etc. So around the table, those people that were making decisions on transportation had no problem with transportation.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and a lot of times probably the housing task force, everybody's got a roof over their head. And I had to bring to the table, like, go in the back of a restaurant and find out how many people don't have a driver's license, you know, or how they got to work. Go talk to your business people about how their folks are getting to work. And, you know, that's when you become enlightened and say, you know,
you have to make the issue relatable.
Because
to
I've heard we don't
individuals,
have a housing problem. We don't have, because you don't have a housing problem.
That's right.
Right, so that's what you.
Yeah, that's part of what we hear and part of what
We've had a
struggle
housing
with.
problem for 40 years.
Exactly.
Just,
Yeah.
You know, you remember a lot of these houses, I guess it was the early 90s, late 80s, where you finished off underneath your beach box and created this non-conforming illegal ADU.
Yeah.
And that's how folks got by with it.
That's right.
And they're still occupying them. Yeah.
Well, I was screaming at the time, if you went through and in you know, West Side and in talking to one town publicly about, if you went down through your town, up and down the streets, and you enforced what was on the books, you would have a homeless problem.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, the flood maps changed that a little bit because they were then, you know, they were non-conforming because they were below base flood, but yeah, it was, you would have a homeless problem.
But, you know, the other thing that changes that, and changes some of this bill, is we're all on septic systems.
Yeah.
And you brought up, you may not even remember because you spoke on it 7, 8 years ago about where that groundwater is.
Yeah.
Our flooding problem is, we call it a septic system problem. Because you know, when septic was around in 1960, we didn't have the development that you have.
Yeah.
And that's the reason Nags hit so much on their density for that same reason.
Yeah.
But I'll segue into that, as y'all often do. Nags Head also has Todd Craft.
Yes, I was gonna say that, yeah.
Was a big push on our septic health program.
Great program.
We actually give out loans
Yes.
to have your septic replaced.
He's having Connor in to talk to us is on my list. Yeah,
Connor's awesome.
Yes, he is. No, I've got Dave Halleck lined up for June, and Connor's on my list for July. Don't tell Connor that, because I haven't told Connor that. I've got to email him.
This will frustrate you.
Yeah.
So we do have, you know, folks in the association from outside of the area, those secondaries that, and I have gotten this call not just once, but the phone call that says, "What's a septic system?"
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like, you can Google it, ChatGPT, do it all day long, whatever, and you're actually taking the time to call me to ask me that. Like, that's how a lot of these houses.
Wow.
It goes where?
Yeah, education. Yeah, we need to. Yeah, we need to have.
But that's a wonderful program. Very wonderful.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. And actually, we talk about that in our housing report that we did last year about how the other towns needed to do it, because it's that sustainability component that we talk about with our housing. It's not just getting in the house; it's staying in the house and protecting what you have.
Yeah, and I think at the time I probably talked about there's many phases of flooding. You know, you repave the road that much, you got nuisance flooding in your yard all of a sudden, and that happened on NC12 south. And then just the septic systems. You got heavy rain events that come in, the water table's higher, and then you got the water from the septic system, and it's
you
all
got the
like
tourists out there having a wonderful time singing.
Let their kids run through it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'll never forget after Hurricane Isabel.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Anyway, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for your time. I know you're a busy guy. Yeah.
When is okay? So this is 2025, 2026. Is that an election year for you?
No.
No, is it
This
20
year.
This
It
year?
would be this
Yeah,
year.
the
What?
municipal elections are this year, yeah.
Oh my gosh, where
Yeah.
have we been? It's May. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, it's May 16th.
This will be our third election, yeah, my third
Wow.
election since I've been governor of affairs,
Look
because
at that.
the first year it was municipal, then it was county, and this year it's municipal, and
That's
so.
right. I'm just putting you
I
right
know,
up to a
I know.
county commissioner there, and I'm thinking, oh, 2026. Wow, okay, this
There
year
is a
fun.
county commissioner election in 2026
In
too.
2026,
Ross,
yeah,
right?
but I was
Yeah.
pushing him in.
Yes, Nags head president, yeah.
Rob Ross.
All right.
That's one thing that we have to we talked about this the other day with Lori Brooks, your colleague there, about how we need to get people who are realtors into the planning boards and the elected officials, because we need that seat at the table.
That's right. Because if you don't have a seat at the table, you're likely on the menu. And if real estate is your profession, politics is your business.
Oh, sorry, game, business, whatever.
No, let's change that. All right, let's try that again. If real estate is your profession, politics is your business.
Yes.
And with that, we'll wrap it up.
That's
Thanks,
right.
Mike.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
See, that was painless.